She showed us her kitchen.
Mold, mold, mold. Down here.
And then her living room.
Mold. That's nothing but mold growing on the wall.
Tracy Grant says these are just the everyday battles that she and her 6-year-old fight at Eureka Gardens every day.
It's hot in apartments. We don't have central air. So when we don't have central air, it's not keeping the mold away from you. It's literally coming out. It's hard to keep clean because when you get one spot, it's growing somewhere else.
Grant says she's been living here for 5 years and is a loyal tenant. But she says when she voices her concerns to management, the maintenance they do perform only fixes the problem temporarily. Tuesday night, tenants wrote a letter to HUD urging the department to take a closer look at the recent passing of an inspection done by the Real Estate Assessment Center. These were just a few of the issues tenants included in that letter.
My sister have all this mildew and the smell. It's terrible in there.
My tub is rusted out from the front to the back. The drain is lime green.
What was the point of that letter?
To reveal the poor living conditions in Eureka Gardens.
Mona Lisa Arnold is one of the many residents who helped construct this letter to the Department of Housing and Urban Development Tuesday night.
What is that down there? Look like that mold there, all on that ground there.
She showed us and told us about some of the concerns that residents placed in the letter to HUD, hoping the department will re-inspect all 400 units in the complex, checking carefully for health and safety concerns.
You don't even need to go in an apartment at Eureka Gardens to find the frustration of the people who live there.
If you can come look at this hole, I would like for you to see how big this hole is. You see this? Mold, whatever, fungus, green, whatever. That's not our job to clean that up. This right here came from this right here. Bam. We fix your steps, guys.
A woman stopped to show us the steps, where she says the repair job is shoddy at best.
Our News 4 Jax investigation into complaints of deplorable conditions at the Eureka Gardens apartments is now in its second week. From allegations of mold, mildew, peeling paint, shoddy repairs, and leaking air conditioning units. Our cameras found leaking units hanging off of window after window today. Residents maintain these units are contributing to the mold. We also obtained this paperwork from tenants, an air conditioning addendum. They say it's the only way they're able to get an AC unit installed. It reads, quote, air conditioners must be installed by the contractor approved by this property. This check shows where one tenant paid that approved contractor, Mark Garrard, $50 to install that unit. Problem is, the state of Florida confirmed to me today, Mark Garrard is not a licensed contractor in the state. We do know from the property manager, Holly Garrard, that Mark is her husband. Tonight, we're also working to learn more about the man who profits from owning Eureka Gardens and who also vows to fix it. Reverend Richard Hamlet with the Global Ministries Foundation.
We're on this thing. I mean, we want to make sure that our residents have health, have healthy and housing units that are safe.
Safe for a property that's home to 866 people. Recent statistics show 28.3% of those tenants are children 5 and under. Looking deeper into the numbers, Reverend Hamlet confirms to News 4 Jax he makes $485,000 every year, a salary he maintains he deserves for running a company that generates $100 million in revenue every year. He values the company's real estate portfolio at $500 million. That includes 11,000 units.
We have nothing to hide. We abide by the statutes that are the HUD regulations.
Reverend Richard Hamlet is a slumlord. True or false?
Absolutely false. Anybody who says that knows nothing about me, my calling, or how we do so much to help people. A slumlord is somebody that doesn't care about their residents. We care about every resident, and we're determined to serve them.
And that local breaking news alert is on the west side of the city of Jacksonville. People have turned out in force to inspect a plagued apartment complex.
The residents at the Eureka Garden apartments say that they are living in unsafe, unsuitable conditions. They want the city and the federal government to step in. Channel 4's Ashley Mitchum has been live in the neighborhood all morning long.
Yeah, so it looks like those tenants are getting what they wanted. So who all from the city is out there, Ashley?
A multi-agency city sweep at this west side low-income housing complex. At issue, the health and safety of the more than 850 adults and children who live there.
Black stuff will shoot out of there sometimes.
and then our toilet will kick up black stuff and it'll bubble back up. So if I'm taking a shower, the sink will bubble up with black stuff.
What city inspectors at Eureka Gardens saw today nearly brought a council member to tears and did cause a council staff member to weep. Then they called Mayor Curry, who was angry over what he saw.
The sweep started this morning. The goal to see what needs to be done to make the homes at Eureka Gardens safe and to see if federal inspectors missed anything when the complex passed a HUD inspection in August.
The News 4 Jax investigators started looking into complaints last week when tenants called our newsroom for help. Our reporters have been following the inspection, the political fallout, and talking with residents about their predicament. We begin with News 4 Jax investigator Lindsay Gardner, live from the Operations Command Center at the complex. Lindsay?
Arm in arm with Jacksonville Mayor Lenny Curry. It's not a position Tracy Grant pictured herself in just days ago, when this mother and grandmother were showing our cameras what she says is mold in her kitchen, her bathroom, and on her floor. Then she called us again this week when she said property management was trying to cover it up by painting over it.
People are being treated like animals, and they treat animals way better than this.
She helped to organize the effort and even wrote a complaint, then sent to HUD and the mayor's office on Tuesday.
The city of Jacksonville is here today. Members of council are here today because this courageous woman shined a bright light on what many of us did not know was happening and going on.
Dwan Wilson says she can't believe the condition that her apartment is in.
I have 4 small children. My son has house.
City council members toured her apartment.
I still leaked species water into my apartment. They came in and they painted over it.
Wilson says she has several problems in several areas of where she lives.
The mold is coming back through. It's coming back through when they painted over.
She says she has problems in her bathroom.
Sometimes if you turn it on, black stuff will come out of it.
Today, we learned why a federal HUD inspector gave Eureka Gardens the score of an 85B during its inspection in August. This after I tried to personally ask 3 HUD inspectors I met during the 2-day city raid, but they declined to talk with me on camera. These papers now show the inspector docked the complex 15 points out of 100 for issues found inside 24 randomly selected units. Mainly the problems were in the kitchen. Problems with the refrigerator or stove were the most common, as well as some peeling paint. We also learned the lowercase letter B is given if 1 or more non-life-threatening health and safety deficiencies are found, but no exigent fire safety health and safety deficiencies were observed, other than for smoke detectors. Boiling over across town at yet another low-income housing complex, Washington Heights.
Every time someone takes a shower up there, it leaks through.
Both properties are just 2 of 6 here in Jacksonville, all owned by the same man, Reverend Richard Hamlet with the Global Ministries Foundation. The others, Springfield Residential 1, Southside Apartments, Market Street Apartments, and Moncrief Village. News 4 Jax obtained an independent audit of Hamlet's Jacksonville-based business. It shows from 2012 to 2013, Hamlet reported close to $7.2 million in revenue for those 6 Jacksonville properties alone. Of that, almost all revenue, $7 million, came from tenant assistance payments, also known as your federal tax dollars at work, granted by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD.
We're going to do 100% inspections of all of the units. We're going to do a management review, and we're also going to have a meeting with the tenants. So we're excited about that. We're a team with the mayor.
Promises made directly from HUD Field Office Director Elisa Scott Ford on the steps of City Hall, side by side with Congresswoman Corrine Brown. Scott Ford talked with News 4 Jax today for the very first time since our investigation began in September into deplorable living conditions we uncovered at Eureka Gardens. Mold and mildew, leaking AC units, faulty stairs, peeling paint, broken appliances and plumbing, plus gas leaks. Just some of the hundreds of violations we found with our cameras, then written up in a 2-day code sweep by the city of Jacksonville. finding 163 units with violations out of 400 at Eureka Gardens, or 40% of all the homes there. As we've reported, almost all of these code violations were absent from the HUD report in August that scored the complex a passing score of an 85, leading tenants to call News 4 Jax asking for help. One by one, Jacksonville city leaders and HUD filed in for a closed-door meeting today at City Hall, all converging to talk about deplorable living conditions at Eureka Gardens apartments, first exposed by News 4 Jax. Tenants called us to cry foul after this inspection report filed in August passed the property with the score of an 85. Those tenants invited us into their homes to show our cameras the mold, the mildew, broken appliances, shoddy repairs, faulty stairs, and leaking AC units. Health and safety issues that we uncovered were largely missing from the HUD inspection report, conducted by a contract inspector hired by HUD just weeks before. For the first time, Jacksonville's field office director with HUD, Alicia Scott Ford, admits there was a problem with that inspection. So you've invalidated the score of the 85?
Absolutely.
Is that rare for HUD?
Very rare.
Reverend Richard Hamlet is the face of the Global Ministries Foundation, the same company that owns the troubled Eureka Gardens. In 2012, Mayor Alvin Brown was the face of leadership in Jacksonville. News 4 Jax confirmed the deal to bring Hamlet's Tennessee-based nonprofit here to Jax 3 years ago went against all city protocols and was approved solely by Mayor Brown. This report, sent this month by financial advisors employed by the city to the Jacksonville Housing Finance Authority, cites our News 4 Jax investigation into deplorable living conditions at Eureka Gardens, and it outlines why the deal never should have been approved. Mark Hendrickson is one of those financial advisors. He talked to me by phone from his Tallahassee office today.
So in your 8 years of working with the city of Jacksonville on these types of deals, have you ever seen a deal get pushed through like the one with Global Ministries Foundation?
No.
So were there clear red flags in 2012?
Even at that time, all you had to do was use Google, and you could come up with issues related to this, to the entity, Reverend Hamlet's entity in Memphis. What were alleged to be basically slum conditions and slumlord activity.
Hendrickson says it's the job of the Jacksonville Housing Finance Authority to properly vet financial deals that involved low-income housing in Duval County. It's a transparent process that involves financial experts and all of City Council. However, Hendrickson says the board was shocked to learn of Hamlet's proposed purchase only through an ad in the paper. Do you think Mayor Brown should answer for his decision in 2012?
Good luck. Yeah, I think he should. I think he ought to man up and tell everybody why he did that. But I don't trust that that's necessarily going to happen, evidenced by the fact he hasn't responded to your inquiries.
Gulliford says he is confident politics are to blame, and he's confident Mayor Lenny Curry's administration and this newly elected city council will step in and stop it. He wants to make it a law that city council must approve any future low-income property bond deal.
A News 4 Jax investigation tonight into the living conditions at Eureka Gardens. For the first time, we're hearing from the owner of the troubled apartment complex about the existing living conditions and health concerns.
I apologize. I regret it, and I'm sorry. And I'm the owner, and it's on my watch, and I take responsibility for it. But I'm making the changes and adjustments now.
Weeks after our investigation of Eureka Gardens began, we are now able to ask the owner, Reverend Richard Hamlet, questions face-to-face.
He's here in Jacksonville until Thursday to meet with local leaders about the conditions at Eureka Gardens. He was at City Hall this morning for a meeting with HUD, a city councilman, and Congresswoman Corrine Brown as well. We were not allowed in that meeting, despite it being in a public room at City Hall. The News 4 Jax investigators are staying on top of this story. Jim Piggott was there as Reverend Hamlet's tenants met with him this afternoon. First, let's go to Tarek Miner, though, who was able to ask Hamlet for answers to the many questions about his ownership of the complex. Tarek.
Reverend Richard Hamlet strolls into City Hall all by himself, and this is how he responded when we told him his tenants are calling him a slumlord.
That is a poor word and an accurate word to describe us. We care for our residents. I could show you thousands of other slumlords in America.
Following a 2-hour closed-door meeting with federal, state, and local officials, the Reverend responded to questions the people here in Eureka Gardens say they've been asking for years.
Fix it or empty it.
That's what the head of Eureka Gardens Tenant Association says should happen with the complex. She met today with some of the people who live in the apartments that have been the center of our investigation into public housing problems and the tax dollars paid to the private company which runs it. Grant was not at the City Hall meeting where the head of the group that owns the complex, Richard Hamlet, met with HUD, city officials, and federal officials to see how the problems are being addressed. After that meeting downtown, Hamlet came to the complex and told us 45% of the needed repairs are done.
Now the millionaire pastor who owns the Eureka Gardens apartment complex is taking more heat for investing more than $1 million in a Christian retreat center.
News 4 Jax investigator Tarek Miner traveled to Memphis and learned Reverend Richard Hamlet's foundation, Global Ministries, purchased a $1.25 million satellite campus earlier this year to expand his ministry, while hundreds of his Section 8 tenants continue to live in squalor.
Hidden behind this gated entrance is what some call a pastor's paradise on 18 acres of land. News4Jax has confirmed Richard Hamlet's Global Ministries Foundation paid $1.25 million just 9 months ago for this satellite campus called the Stephen Olford Center. It's a facility the pastor says is designed to teach men and women how to preach. We took the concerns of these residents to Reverend Richard Hamlet's foundation office.
Gentlemen,
Mr. Hamlet, how are you,
come
sir?
on into this house.
Where Hamlet agreed to sit down with me.
Why not take that $1.5 million that you put into the Alford Center and put those into those properties?
Well, those are two different business plans. The Alford Center, we have donors that give to our foundation for specific ministry projects, and we work in 30 countries around the world.
Hamlet says his housing projects are a sustainable business and his ministry a separate entity within his business model. He says he made substantial improvements at his 3 troubled apartment complexes, evacuating 45 families out of their homes because of the poor conditions, and then moving them back in after the repairs were made earlier this year. But residents say the Reverend is blatantly neglecting the needs of the poor.
When you see some of the conditions that the people live in, how does that affect you?
It bothers me. My heart is to come and help those who are who need to be empowered, and those who are the disadvantaged. Excuse me. I mean, this is impromptu, but that's my mission. I want to build bridges to help those who are the least and the disadvantaged.
He's a criminal. He's a criminal masquerading as a man of God, and he's doing it with public money. He is taking advantage of people in the most vulnerable of circumstances and retaliating against people who complain.